Hello everybody and welcome back once again. My name is Kari and today I am doing my September TBR. So, once upon a time, on September 7th, 1533, my favorite person of all time, Elizabeth I, was born. And she wasn't Elizabeth I at the time, she was just Elizabeth Tudor, the second child of Henry VIII, well, living child, with his second wife, Anne Boleyn, who didn't last much more than 3 years after that. But anyway, I have been obsessed with her since I was 10-ish, and every September for me kind of becomes her month. Since I have been doing themed reading TBRs this year since May, which really is just when I came back to BookTube, whoops, I have decided that this month's is going to be Elizabeth themed, because duh. So, I have a collection of books here at my feet. These are obviously not all of the books I own about Elizabeth I. These are just the ones that I looked at and went, ooh yeah, I've had that for a while, or want to read that now, what have you. There are some rereads I have that I want to get to, and I know I have more books about Elizabeth somewhere in this collection. But let's get started. First off, we have The Wars of the Roses by Alison Weir. Strictly speaking, this is not about Elizabeth, but it is about, more or less, how the Tudor dynasty gets started. Because the Wars of the Roses are kind of how we get Henry, the seventh, ultimately, and then marries Elizabeth of York and ends them. I do also have Elizabeth of York, but I read that one last year, so I'm not going to reread that one right now. But I am 90% sure I have not read this one because the spine's not wrinkled yet. We also have The Time Traveler's Guide to Elizabethan England by Ian Mortimer. There is How to Be a Tudor by Ruth Goodman on my shelves, which I have read and loved. Also How to Behave Badly in Elizabethan England by her, also loved, but I haven't read this one yet. And obviously I need to, so I'm gonna do that one. One of the fiction that I found is The Queen's Governess by Karen Harper, and this is about Cat Ashley, who becomes Cat Champerdown when she gets married. And she is Elizabeth's governess, and then stays with Elizabeth until Cat's death. 1580s, I think, is when she died. I honestly don't remember. But Elizabeth, from what I know, absolutely adored Cat. She must have. She stayed with her forever. And she was a phenomenal person. So I'm very excited to read that novelization. I also need to get into some more Shakespeare. This is the entire collected works of Shakespeare, so I will not be reading all of this, never fear. I have read several of his plays. I've read, oh god, Macbeth, Othello, Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, Midsummer Night's Dream, The Tempest, The Taming of the Shrew. I've not read any of his histories yet, they scare me. Let's see. So we have Henry VI, parts 1 through 3, good lord. Richard III, Titus Andronicus, Comedy of Errors, Two Gentlemen of Verona, Love's Labours Lost, King John, Richard II. Oh, I've read The Merchant of Venice. First part of Henry IV, second part, Henry V, Much Ado About Nothing, Merry Wives of Windsor, Julius Caesar, As You Like It. I think I've read Twelfth Night. Troilus and Cressida, All's Well That Ends Well, Measure for Measure, King Lear, Antony and Cleopatra, Coriolanus, Timon of Athens, Pericles, Cymbeline, Winter's Tale, and Henry VIII. I didn't realize he wrote one about Henry VIII. And then there's some poems in this thing too. I would be quite happy if I could get through one, because I recognize that Shakespeare for today's readers is very dense, myself included, and I want to read it and then watch some sort of adaptation that I can find for free on the interwebs, because usually that helps with context. After this, the rest are nonfiction, but this is The Sceptred Isle by Mercedes Lackey and Roberta Gellis. I have not read this one yet. It's the first in the quartet about Elizabeth and the Fae fantasy, because I think that's all Mercedes Lackey writes. But at any rate, I haven't read this one. I have read them completely out of order. Like, started with 3, went back to 2, went to 4, and now I'm reading 1. Go figure. But I do want to read this one because I want to see where we go. Or if I've read this one and I'll check my Storygraph, I will read whatever one I haven't, because I know I haven't finished the series. Right. Moving on to the nonfiction, Elizabeth's Spy Master by Robert Hutchinson. Many of these I'm quite sure have found their way onto my TBR previously, because Elizabeth, have you been watching for even a video? I'm not shy or quiet about my love for her. This is about Francis Walsingham, who is obviously her spy master. His daughter marries somebody that she shouldn't have. It's very sad. 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 It's very doesn't end very well. Anyway, he is a very important person in Elizabeth's reign, and I don't know enough about him, so theoretically, hopefully I can get to that. And then we have Elizabeth, The Later Years by John Guy, which I have not read. Obviously, this is about the later years in Elizabeth's life. Exactly when, I don't know. Let's see, for 25 years, okay. It was only when she reached 50, so 88, oh geez. No, that doesn't make any sense. Yes, it does. She was 25 then. She was 25 and 50? Yeah. Nope, I'm doing math wrong. 83, sorry. 1583. I can do math. Please don't make me do numbers. Starting in 1583, he looks at her life and her reign from there, which sounds very interesting, and I do enjoy the more nuanced and niched looks at Elizabeth, because I think they're really interesting. Also, Game of Queens by Sarah Gristwood, which is the women who made 16th century Europe. So obviously this is not specifically about Elizabeth, but it does include Elizabeth because, you know, she's kind of important. So I'm very, very interested in this one. I say that like I'm not interested in some of the books I own. That wouldn't make any sense. Also, Elizabeth and Leicester, which I need to get rid of that price tag, by Sarah Gristwood. This is Elizabeth and Robert Dudley, or the Leicester, as he was known as the Earl of Leicester, their relationship, which is fascinating and rather controversial, but I'm really curious. Then, speaking of Shakespeare, I mean a couple minutes ago, but Will in the World. This is How Shakespeare Became Shakespeare by Stephen Greenblatt. Enough said. He was born in Elizabethan times. I mean, he didn't die until 1625. Nope, that's not right. 1616. I'm thinking of James I. 1616. So he was partly into James the First or Sixth reign. However, he lived mostly in Elizabethan England, and therefore I just ignored James. To be fair, I also don't know that James was... I shouldn't say that. He was very intelligent from what I can tell, which is... I don't know as much about him, but I don't think he did his son any favors. Like any. Because Charles looked at his dad and went, "That seems smart," and lost his head for his trouble. You know? Not great. Moving on. Elizabeth and Mary, Cousins, Rivals, Queens by Jane Dunn. Elizabeth versus Mary, Queen of Scots. Enough said. And last but not least, we have Thomas Cromwell by Tracy Borman. Thomas Cromwell was not in Elizabeth's time. He was a minister to Henry VIII, her father. However, he was also a very important figure and is one of the names that you hear, not as much as Wolsey, but I am excited to read this and learn about him because I don't know as much about him as I would like to. And obviously it kind of sets up for Elizabeth as well. So that's exciting. Those are some of the books that I have as options for this month. If I could get through all of those, I'd be great. Ooh, I should mention. Yeah, so I have a problem. I'm also borrowing Hemingway, A Life Without Consequences by James Mello from my boss because I want to read this biography of Hemingway. I've never read a biography of Hemingway, but it sounds interesting. I am borrowing Happiness Project by Gretchen Rubin from one of my cousins on my mom's side. This is a nonfiction. I'm not actually sure what it's about, but she really likes Gretchen Rubin, so I'm gonna read it because I'm curious. And then I have a bunch of books from the library because, duh. Starting with The Parable of the Talents by Octavia E. Butler, which is the second book in the Parable series. Starting with The Parable of the Sower. I really enjoyed that one, so I would like to get to this one. Go back in. And then for my book club, I have to read this one the week I'm filming, and that is The Red Address book by Sofia Lundberg. This is translated from Swedish, and it is a 96-year-old woman living in her Stockholm apartment. Oh, fun. Okay, so basically she's reliving her past through her address book, which is fun. And then, through one of my projects at work, I realized I don't know enough about drugs. I never thought that sentence would come out of my mouth, but here we are. And so being me, I went to the library and got books about opioids and fentanyl and etc. The fictional one, I just really liked the name of and the fact that it's set in the 20s and it's a mystery. It's called Opium and Absinthe by Lydia Kang. So I'm gonna read a mystery set in the 20s with opium, obviously. And then the rest are nonfiction because I would like to know what's happening. Opium, How an Ancient Flower Shaped and Poisoned Our World by John Halpern and David Blistein. Again, fairly self-explanatory, being nonfiction. And then we have The Science of Breaking Bad by Dave Trumbore and Donna Nelson, who apparently was a science advisor to Breaking Bad, which is fun. I've never watched the show, have no interest in watching the show. You can't change my mind, I'm sorry. Except I'm not sorry. But this kind of goes more into the science of how you do it, without actually being a how-to guide as to how making, what is it, methamphetamine? Right? That's what he's making, is methamphetamine? Meth, yeah. So I'm very interested in that, because I think that'll give me a little bit more context as to, you know, exactly what on earth is happening. Oh, this has nothing to do with meth or heroin or drugs. This is Wild and Wicked Things by Francesca May. This is a fantasy about I don't know what, but Abby got it from Goldsboro Books and loved it, and therefore I fully anticipate I will also love it. And it was the one available in my library. And then we go back to the drugs with Milk of Paradise by Lucy Inglis, which is also a history of opium. Specifically, I did look up opium and opioids, so at some point I will go back and look up more things about fentanyl and stuff like that, because I need context. I am that person. Here we are. It's fine. Whatever. But, yes, so I'm going to learn a lot about the history of opium and opioids and methamphetamine this month, because these are all due this month. Don't get me wrong, I can renew them, but I would... Oh god, I may regret this. This is a lot of books. It'll be fine. I'm also going to Renfest every weekend this month. So, wish me luck, because I'm gonna need it. Where did I put those books? Oh, there they are. Yeah, that's all I have. These are the books I don't know what to do with my hands. These are the books I'm hoping to read, planning to read, all of the above. Pray for me, hope for me, I don't know. I don't know, help me. And if you have read any of them, or interested in any of them, etc., let me know in the comments down below. If you've made it this far and think I'm crazy, because you're not wrong, leave a clown emoji in the comments, because Lord knows I clearly need something to fix me. But anyway, I'm going to go now, because it's dinner time, and I'm hungry, and I have to give someone a wine glass. So, see you in my next video. Bye.